Welcome back to another Director Q&A hosted by Wildscreen. Today I'm joined by Roxy Furman, director of I Am Capable, a short film included in our 2022 official selection. Welcome, Roxy.
Thank you.
First of all, our official selection recognises films all across the world. Can you let me know where you're joining us from today?
Bristol.
Lovely, the capital of natural world storytelling at the moment, isn't it? So I'd love to hear a bit about your directing experience so far and what led up to I Am Capable.
Yeah, sure. So I Am Capable was actually my first short film. It was made as the piece for my master's in wildlife filmmaking. So it was kind of not really what I had planned originally to do as my final piece of the master's, because obviously it's not really a wildlife film. But I was the COVID pandemic year, and the course was kind of really heavily impacted. So we just kind of stopped halfway through and all of our filming plans were put on hold. And I'd actually started working for Silverback and been there just over a year actually before I actually then got the chance to make the film. So kind of the vision of the film I wanted to make and the stories that I wanted to tell really changed from the time of starting the master's to the time where I actually finished it and made that film.
Okay, so this was your sort of debut director experience.
Yeah.
Well, an awesome achievement. I'm interested to hear, did you have any, or did you work in any other departments or any other kind of industries that helped give you skills that maybe you feel transferred into this director role?
Well, my background was in zoology, so I did a 4-year degree in zoology first, and then literally the week after I graduated, moved up to Scotland where I started working on a boat as a guide, and that's when I got my first camera and started doing photography and getting more into storytelling and sharing stories with others. And I also started doing a lot of social media work and sharing that content online. So I'd kind of been creating short form content and stories for a couple of years by that point, but this was the first kind of like actual film not designed for more digital platforms and designed to kind of have more of an impact, really.
That's really interesting to hear. So you feel your experience as a content creator online was helpful in telling short form stories, and that kind of fed into your filmmaking experience.
Yeah, because I guess for most people, making a short film is kind of abnormal. They're more used to making the long films and find the short films difficult. Whereas for me, coming from a more digital space, this was actually considered quite a long film for me. So it was kind of like the reversal of most people's journeys in terms of directing and filmmaking.
I think it's fantastic though. Online content, there's so much promise there, and it's such a fantastic way of engaging with audiences that maybe wouldn't necessarily watch a blue chip production, but instead maybe aren't necessarily kind of engaged in natural world storytelling, but otherwise it pulls them in and it kind of shows them there's a whole world here and there's so many aspects of nature out there to enjoy and indulge in. So yeah, it's really fantastic to hear all of these different ways that natural world stories are kind of making it to different audiences across the globe.
I also think for finding stories as well, because I found Amira through social media. Like that's the first place I came across her was on Instagram, and without that platform I probably never would have found her and connected with her. So I think social media often has like almost a bad reputation, but I think it depends really how you use it, and using it for the right reasons, to like create and inspire change, to connect with new people, to share stories. Like it can be a really valuable tool.
So that's a really interesting point. My next question was going to be on how you found Amira, who's obviously the heart of this story. She's at the very center of it. So you found her via Instagram. And what actually drew you in the first place? Because you mentioned how you were originally, you were kind of obviously partway through your course working at Silverback, and you kind of then decided to tell this story. So what was it that drew you to tell a story about the healing properties of nature, and obviously about the importance of welcoming a diverse range of people into natural spaces?
Yeah, so I think lockdown gave a lot of people the opportunity to like sit and have the time to learn about things that maybe we otherwise wouldn't have learned about, and discover these areas that we were less aware of. And for me, that I became much more aware of like the privilege of accessing nature and who can access nature and who tends to tell these stories. And obviously becoming aware that, you know, what can I do within that space to use my skill set and my privilege to share and tell these stories. And then a few months later, I saw a post of Amira, and she was like paddleboarding in the Lake District in her niqab, and she just looked amazing. And I reached out to her and I was like, you're so cool. I love what you're doing. I love the message that you're spreading and just getting out there and encouraging other women to do the same. Would you be interested in, you know, working on a story together? And it kind of went from there.
It's fantastic. It's one of those stories that shows that, you know, you can really reach anyone on social media. If you're willing to kind of give a DM and reach out to people, you never really know what the possibilities are as to who you can reach out to.
Yeah, and I think also like having that flexibility in directing and storytelling as well, because I was aware that I wanted to be a part of telling Amira's story, but that it was her story. Almost like, I guess the film is like acting as a vessel to tell her story, but it came through in the way in which she wanted it to, and she felt comfortable with it, and that was like really important for me as well.
Was she involved in the actual storytelling process? Did you kind of ask her to review any of the rough cuts or get involved in directing at all?
Not with the directing so much, but on the day I kind of just had a very hands-off approach. I didn't really go with any set plan of this is the film in terms of a storyboard and outline. I kind of had rough like, oh, it'd be great if we can do the swim, if we can have a little walk, if we can sit down and talk through some questions. But at the same time, when we were doing the interviews, I was like, what do you feel like you want or need to say in this moment? Like, what would be valuable for you to get across, rather than, you know, me asking a question which I think is important. I guess shifting that focus to what they feel like they really wanted and needed to say in that moment.
No, I think that's a really important point, how you describe it as the film as a vessel, because it is this platform that you are giving to Amira's voice, and obviously the Wanderlust Women's voices. Yeah, it's really fantastic kind of that you worked to try and remove yourself from that lens, to try and make it as pure a depiction as possible of what she wanted to say and communicate directly to the audience.
Yeah, and I think it worked and allowed for them to feel more comfortable and safe as well, and also for moments in the film to happen in the way that they happened. Like at one point Sham starts crying, but that was like at the very end of her interview when I said to her, like, is there something more that you want to say? And that's when that moment happened. Whereas if it was, you know, all planned out and I had this set questions and we're going to do this, and didn't allow the space for that, then those moments wouldn't have been in the film.
That's really true. And I think there's such a vulnerability and a rawness to their stories. And it's just, yeah, it's really beautiful how open they feel to talking in front of the camera. But obviously this story is resonating with so many people. I did want to ask, in terms of your, when you set out to make this production, what your goals were, either locally or globally. What kind of impacts did you want to make?
Yeah, so I guess I had like the two sides of it. One was like the film and the people who made the film, and one was like the film itself and the people that are in the film and whose story it is. So the first would be that it's all made by women, like everyone in the production team was a woman, which I think is like very rare in this industry to have even one woman on a production, let alone a whole team of women. So that was really important to me, to like have a team together to be like, look, we can do this, we need to be given these opportunities in productions, and here's like a whole film made by an amazing team of women working together. So that was like, I guess, the more behind the scenes aspect of the film. And then the film itself was to, I guess, share a story in a way that raises awareness about the issues that we still have in the UK. I think it's very easy for people to think, oh, this happens elsewhere, but actually taking a step back to realize that we've still got a lot to work on here is often harder for people to recognize and accept. And doing that in a very gentle way, just through sharing someone else's story, and hopefully that making people just stop and think about, okay, well, what can I do to help support or facilitate, make the outdoors more inclusive, and really, I guess, look inwards about each of our places and what each of us can do to change the way things currently are.
I think that's a really important point as well. And even if it's not kind of making change in, as we've seen in some of our other films, like it's not encouraging you to go and plant a tree or kind of engage in a conservation effort. It's more about confronting personal biases and kind of making yourself aware. I think one point that stands out to me is when one of the women mentions that they had a comment from someone when they were walking, just got kind of on a hike, just walking around in natural spaces, and they had received a comment about whether they were lost or not, or knew where they were going. And it's things like that which obviously would really impact people feeling comfortable in the natural space, because they are perfectly capable of going on a hike and kind of monitoring where they're going. But you can definitely understand why that would take a toll, and how kind of making other people aware of not making comments like that could really just be a small step towards making people feel comfortable. And I think you don't really understand that unless you hear from someone directly saying, this is something that has happened to me, and if we can kind of change that, then we can actually make a positive impact across the UK.
Yeah, I think sometimes we're like aware of something, or maybe we read something, but I think sometimes we need to like hear someone's personal experience for it to really like sink in and hit home, and have like more of a lasting impact on our actions then as well.
Yeah, but I think your film does that really, really authentically and really impactfully, because you're literally hearing directly from these women, communicating their stories directly to you. Just touching upon what you mentioned earlier about having an all-women crew, I'd love to hear how you feel that maybe benefited your storytelling or influenced the way that you were able to tell the story.
Yeah, so in this case, I don't think we would have been able to make the film otherwise, because of being with Amira and the Wanderlust Women. Like, they felt more comfortable having a group of women working with them, especially when having to get changed for the wild swimming and things like that. Like, I just don't think it would have worked to have a man on the crew in that instance. But also kind of it immediately built a sense of community, like all women, all trying to fight for something, all trying to fight for change. And that allowed us to just like connect instantly on like almost a different level to just like showing up and being there to just work and film something. It was like, okay, like we all want change, and we're all like supporting one another and advocating for one another in that space as well.
That's a really, really interesting point. How you're all you all have a shared experience to an extent, and a shared passion for nature, and how coming together and everyone kind of sharing their skills and pitching in has resulted in this beautiful final film. I love that idea, and you're so right that it's without this situation, and without an all-women crew, you wouldn't have been able to produce this. So we need more all-women crews, or more women in production.
Yeah,
because otherwise we won't have them. Much to uncover. In terms of the production, how long did it take from the initial idea to finishing the edit and wrapping up?
Yeah, so I kind of did it all whilst working full time. So it was kind of just taking days off of work to work on the film, or weekends and evenings. So the actual filming itself, I had 2 days. So we went up to the Lake District and had the first day just with Amira, and then the second day the other 2 women joined us for the swim. So that was how long we had for shooting. And then the edit in total probably took a month and a half to 2 months, but it wasn't like, a full-time edit. It was doing it around my job. So kind of editing as and when, really.
Gosh, it must have been a challenge to fit all of that in, kind of working in film and then going home, and then also editing and working on your own project.
Yeah,
definitely worth it though. It must have been amazing to kind of, I don't know, to do that to be able to do that alongside working in the industry as well.
Yeah, and I think it's always exciting seeing it turning into something real as well. Like even for Amira, obviously she knew what we filmed on the day, but then like being able to show her something and the different stages along the way was like really exciting and felt very collaborative as well.
Oh, no, that's fantastic to hear. From that period of time where you were working on the production, what would you say was your favorite moment, or something that has stuck with you that you won't be able to forget?
I think just like the sense of community on the day, like just the way in which we all connected. Amira is still a really close friend of mine today. I've worked with her since then as well. Even some of the women from the crew that joined me, like it was the first day meeting them, and they're now some of my best friends. Like it was just such a special day and experience to have, and something that I'd not had before. So I think that's just something that will like stay with me forever, and also kind of push me to advocate for that more as well. Like whenever I have the opportunity to work with someone, really pushing to work with another woman or another person that's like more underrepresented in the industry, and just like really striving to change that and work on that whenever I can as well.
That's lovely to hear. I love the idea that kind of this community just gave birth to all of these friendships and relationships with people that will probably last you for a really long time.
Yeah,
I guess that's another kind of result of the film's impact too, I guess you could say.
Yeah, definitely friendships.
What would you what's next for you? What are you working on? Any projects upcoming, either at work or in your own time?
Yeah, so since making the film, I've gone freelance. I've been freelance since April, and kind of working with brands on more short form content. So I'm heading to India in a week to try and film snow leopards. Awesome. So that will be the next project that I'm working on.
That's really exciting. And you've got so you're, in terms of the content creating, a lot of it is on sort of Instagram, is that right?
Yeah, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. So it's kind of like, I guess, figuring out a way to engage with audiences and different audiences on each platforms, still about the same sort of stories that would be in the more like traditional wildlife filmmaking industry, but engaging with people on different platforms and different groups of people that may not sit down and watch TV at all even. So I think there's something really powerful about that, and still has a lot to be explored, because I think it's only starting to be explored really in our industry in the last couple of years. Yeah,
there's so much potential there, and such a huge audience of people you can reach. But I'll make sure we put any links to your social media in the video description. Anyone can follow you. And so as part of the Q&As, we ask everyone if there's anyone they'd like to get in contact with. Anyone in the natural history community that you'd like to reach out to or collaborate with. So this is your opportunity to do so if there is anyone.
I guess if there was anyone kind of looking for their story to be told, I'd love to speak to those people and see if there's anything that either I can do to tell that story, or I can put them in touch with someone that I know. Yeah, I think that would be something, because I'm always like looking for new people to connect with and new stories to tell. Or on the flip side, if people are more looking for help with creating digital content as an offshoot from maybe a bigger piece, then that's something I'd love to be involved with too.
Oh, I'm sure there'll be lots of people out there. In terms of how they can reach you, what's the best way to get in contact? Would it be like Instagram DMs or through your website?
Yeah, either my website or Instagram. I kind of have everything linked anyway, so my email's on every platform, and it should be quite easy to reach me, hopefully.
That's good to hear. Well, I hope lots of people get in touch with you about future stories they want to tell. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for joining me, Roxy. I hope you have an awesome time filming snow leopards. Definitely share any pictures you take on your social media. But thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.